Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Photography Chat. We're in season 2, episode 42 with Mike Padua coming up here. So we'll try and get Mike in and get him going on here. Hope everyone's been having a good week. What's up, JP? There he is. I think it's getting going here. Come on, Instagram. Accepted it. I don't know if you got to do something on your end there, Mike. Is it working there, Mike? Okay. It says the Mike Padua is unable to join. Do you have the latest? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Huzzah. I like your glasses, man.
Oh, thank you. Oh, JP's in here. Kick JP out. I don't want him here.
I don't know. I can't kick people out, I don't think. Yeah, I think that get the riffraff out of here.
What's going on, man?
Just living the dream. It's another rainy day in Vancouver. It's that time of year right now where the seasonal depression kicks in and all that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's for real. I feel that for sure.
Yeah, how are things down in California?
Well, at the moment, beautiful and sunny. So, but we're about to hit that. That what do you call it when the time changes? The freaking time change.
Oh, daylight savings.
Daylight. Oh, I forgot what it's called. The
Yeah,
daylight savings
the
time. So it's
bullshit
gonna
thing.
start getting. Yeah. It's gonna start getting dark like super early, which like I've grown. I used to love that for some reason, but now that like, I don't know, just like I'm a photographer. I shoot videos, photos. It's like I need the light. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I've grown to really appreciate the summer months.
So, like, when you liked the lack of light, was that more of like a gamer phase or like an emo goth phase or something? Or
It might be all of the above. So before I got like super serious with photography and this business, it was just like, like me and my girlfriend would go out to dinner. Now my wife, we'd just like go out to dinner. So it didn't matter if it was sunny or dark. You know what I mean? I'd just be doing the same thing. Or I'd go like hang out with my friends or whatever, like, or I was also a musician for a short little bit. Um, and so it's like we were headed to a show and we were going to be inside a dark, dingy club anyway. So
what did you play? Like, what kind of music, what instrument?
it was a long time ago. The last time I was in a band was like 2008. But the last band I was in, I played bass. But before that, I had played guitar. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Last band I was in, I played bass.
That makes sense. Bass players are a little weird usually.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah, nothing compared to drummers though. Like drummers are.
Drummers are really weird. But like bassists and drummers are really important. Like,
Yeah.
the guitarists and all that, that's a dime a dozen. But if you don't have a good bassist and a good drummer, then like your band kind of sucks. JP would play the triangle. That seems about right. He's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
quite ready for the cowbell yet.
Mm-hmm. I tried to give him quadrangle lessons, but he was like, "That's too complicated."
That's wild. Yeah, I used to play bass in a band too, and it was probably around the same time, like, oh fuck, probably even earlier, like maybe 2006, 2007 was the last time. Peace out, Brian Brooks. I miss seeing your face too, buddy.
See you, Brian. Catch you next time, man.
Love that guy. He's the best. Um, yeah, I miss playing in bands. It was a lot of fun. What kind of music did you play?
It was, I guess you'd call it punk rock. You know, like growing up as a kid, that was like, you know, the reason I picked up a guitar in the first place. And then, you know, you naturally start a punk rock band with your friends because that's all you know how to play. And then in the later years, these guys asked me to play bass in their. I didn't even like own a bass. I was not a bass player, but they were like, "Hey, Mike's a nice guy, and he knows how to play guitar. He for sure knows how to play bass. Let's ask him to play bass." So I was with that band for like, God, like 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Jen's asking what instrument do I play. I used to play bass guitar when I played in bands, and then I terribly play guitar on my own.
Do you still play guitar? I know this is photography chat, so I apologize to everybody, but
well, so the thing is, photography chat's just the name of the show, and the premise of it is, you know, every week I spend some time talking to somebody that the common theme between me and them is, you know, photography in some sort of sense, but
yeah.
I really like learning more about the individual as well as like talking about the photography stuff. So it's cool to know about this part of you. And I kind of feel like I've noticed a theme with a lot of people I've talked to so far is that a lot of them have been musicians or played like instruments along with that. So maybe there's something with, you know, being a creative, like exploring different things and having that inspire you. So I'm kind of curious with that, you know, because, you know, also a fellow punk kid. Have you noticed like punk inspiring some of what you do? And like, I know the answer is probably going to be yes with some of that because I've seen some of the pins that you've created.
Sure.
There's definitely some of that, but you know, has it inspired you? And top 5 punk bands?
Has it inspired me? Yeah, for sure. You are correct. The answer to that is yes. A lot of that has, you know, to do with the whole DIY thing. Like growing up, it's like the only way. I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? Like you make your own T-shirts. You copy. You make your own cassette covers. You dub your own cassettes. It's like. It's you know I never once thought to go to a screen printer. I didn't know that was even a thing. Like I knew like Metallica somehow magically made their shirts in their Metallica universe or whatever, but it's like we just like make our own shirts at home and like learn how to make a screen, you know, and make our own cassettes. And then top 5 punk bands. That's a good. I guess I'll just go like okay. So what started it all for me was a Sex Pistols cassette. So I'll probably go like because it was like it looked dangerous. You know what I mean? It was like we had this music. I was like 14 years old. We had this music store in our hometown called The Warehouse. If anybody from the Bay Area watches this, they're gonna know what I'm talking about. But it looked dangerous and it sounded cool, you know. And then that went into Minor Threat, which was like just offended my ears at first because it was like, dude, there's zero melody to this. Like, what is this? But it was like, there's something about this that I really like, and I just can't stop listening to it. And then that dovetailed into Black Flag, and then that also because I'm from the San Francisco East Bay area. Green Day was like a big deal here. I live in a little town called Benicia, and they would play here all the time. You know, we had a youth center here where they played. When they were playing in this town, I was actually too young, so I didn't see them when they played in this town. But you know, they left a lasting impression, and like half of my friend group in town all work for those guys. How many bands is that? Is that 4?
You're 4. So
yes, that's 4, and then Fugazi. So like Minor Threat kind of dovetailed into Fugazi, and that's pretty much, I'd say that would round out like my all-time top. Although from pure, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna throw a 6th one in there. Your rules be damned, Merlin. But in terms of pure listening, like listening time, The Clash. So I probably like in high school, I probably listened to that band like the most in terms of like listening time.
Like Joe Strummer, amazing. Like that,
Oh,
big
dude, yeah,
of the Clash and like his later work. And when you were mentioning the DIY stuff, I kind of figured you were either going to say Minor Threat or Fugazi in the mix there, because like that's a
for
real
sure.
those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you mentioned Joe Strummer again, veering into guitar nerd stuff. So I apologize to anybody that is bored with this stuff. But like his guitar sound was the sound of a Telecaster, and
Hmm.
I was not smart enough to know that. But Ian Mackay from Minor Threat and Fugazi played an SG, so I had an SG. So because I thought it was cool, right? But I was a kid. I didn't know anything about guitar tone or anything. And the sound I wanted was what Joe Strummer sounded like. And I was always trying to do that with an SG. And I was like, why can't I sound like Joe Strummer? And then I realized it's the Telecaster. It's
Did,
like,
did you have the SG with the dual humbuckers on it?
yes, I absolutely did.
Yeah.
It was like my dream guitar because I thought it was like my heroes played it, even though those weren't the people I wanted to sound like, you know?
That's totally fair. Like I always wanted an SG because I thought the SG looked really badass.
Yeah.
Um, I have like a Washburn MG30, which is kind of like a Stratocaster ripoff.
Yeah. Okay.
Great guitar. I've it's been a trusty steed for over 20 years, which is wild to think about because it doesn't feel like it's been that long
Yeah.
having these things. So it's kind of cool, but I've noticed like there's a similar care and attention when people talk about their music instruments to their like cameras and things like that. And I was kind of curious to ask you, like, with all of your cameras, do you have any where they've been in your trust for so long, but when you think about it, it's just like it doesn't feel like any time has passed with that camera.
Yeah, definitely. So the film camera, the camera that got me shooting film again was my sister's Yashica Fx3,
Nice.
which is just a super simple. I think Cosina made it, but it's just a super simple SLR. You know, known to be very durable. It's got like the LEDs for the light meter on the side, and you know, I'll it's not my main camera, but I will shoot like a couple of rolls through it every couple of months. But yeah, it's like it's the one out of all the cameras I have. I have like way nicer cameras and cameras that I love and cherish, but that's the one camera that I can never sell. You know, even if I wanted to sell it, it would probably sell for like $50. But I can never get rid of that camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because my sister gave it to me, and it's the camera that got me on this path of shooting film again, way back in 2009.
And when did you get? Oh, so 2009 was when you started
Mm-hmm. Yep.
playing with. Oh, nice.
Yeah, there was like a 5 year period where I didn't touch a roll of film. In fact, I remember once. I remember specifically getting my first digital camera in like 2002, maybe 2001, and looking at the pictures on my computer and thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I never have to buy a roll of film ever again. This is amazing." You know?
Famous last words.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so there was like a good like 4 or 5 years. Actually, more than
So
that,
what
where I.
like after you had that thought of like I never have to buy a roll of film again and digital,
Mhm.
that's like what pulled you back into the fray of burning money up like it's going out of style?
So that's a really good question. So my sister gave me this camera, and I had started my attempt to be a professional photographer because, you know, like I started buying digital SLRs and shooting like theatrical productions and stuff like that, and I started to understand manual exposure after after a while, kind of just through osmosis, not through efforts of trying to understand it, but just because I had a camera in my hands all the time, I was like, oh, it's like, that's what this knob does. Okay, I would just kind of absorb it over time. And so when my sister gave me this completely mechanical manual camera, I looked at the dials and I thought, I know what those dials mean. Like, I know what all this stuff means, even though like, a few years ago, before learning how to expose with digital, I didn't know what any of these dials mean. So like, I'm super curious to try this. So I went to Rite Aid, got some Rite Aid brand film, ran that through, which was just rebranded Fuji film. It was like 200, ran that through the camera. And when I got and this was when Costco was still developing film, our local Costco. I got the rolls back with the scans, and I was like, these look so different. Like, I don't remember. Digital had made me forgot what film can look like, that it just looks so different. And also just the experience, like there's no screen, I've got the 36, so I'm acting a little bit more precious about the 36 or usually 24, because I was just buying like cheap grocery store stuff,
I was going to ask you there. I'm like 36 versus 24. Which camp are you part of?
I'm 36 for sure. Like I like volume. But give me a roll of 24, I'll be fine. I'll make it work.
Nice. I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that's a kind of fun start, and I'm guessing that Rite Aid probably doesn't sell film anymore because
They do sell film.
They do.
They sell film very, very expensively, actually. Yeah.
Still Rite Aid branded?
No, not right. Good question. Not Rite Aid branded. It's Fuji. It's they sell Superior, the 200 and the Superior 400. So so they do still sell the film, but it's super expensive. It's like $35 for 3 rolls of 400.
God damn.
Yeah.
That's like 2 rolls of 400.
I guess if you're desperate and you really need film, you can get it from Rite Aid.
So I've always been kind of curious, like, how did you get from those kind of starts there, from, punk bands to doing the digital thing to finding film again to Shoot Film Co?
So that started in 2015 when, I was deep into the film thing. I was still shooting digital for jobs and stuff. But everything personal was filmed just because it was more fun. You know what I mean? So all the stuff I was shooting for myself at home of my kids, it's all digital, it's all film. And so you just, you fall into these communities, like, for example, on Instagram, you fall into these communities and these hashtags and stuff, and you find other people. It's like, you realize, oh, there's other people out there that are shooting this too. So I was actually going way back before I was even a photographer, before I even started shooting digital even. I actually worked at a print shop. So graphic design was one of my first loves before photography. So when I started shooting film again, I made just one embroidered patch, because there was companies making embroidered patches, and it was kind of like a joke, like a fun little thing. And I made, I think I made 25 of them, and I sent, I sent a handful out to 6 of my friends who I'd met on Instagram. So I was like, hey, I made this fun little patch. We're film shooters. Give me your address. I sent it out. And then like over the next couple of weeks, they said like, hey, do you have any more of those patches? My friend wants one. And then now this friend wants one. And now this friend wants one. So that just became like, it's like, oh, like people want these things. And I have all these silly little designs in my head. It's like, I'm just going to make more and put them up. I made like a little cheesy web store with WordPress and, just put them up for sale and promoted them on Instagram, and that like just grew and grew and grew. It's basically a conduit for ideas, you know, because again, like I'm also, in addition to being a photographer, I was a designer, and that was like my first love.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. What what was the patch again?
It was the yellow. It was like an oval patch that said, "Oh my God, I can't even remember." It was it said "In grain we trust," and it had like a little, you know, like a little 35 millimeter roll of film with the leader out, and it was like yellow in homage to Kodak colors, you know.
Nice. I like that. Have you done like a reissue of that one, or is that one that's like a regular staple on the
Yeah, I
site?
did. I did a couple of runs. I did a couple of runs of like, you know, I didn't change anything, but I ran it again like a few times until basically like I just kind of let it go out of production, you know. And people still ask about it every once in a while, which is cool. That something like from the very beginning people still recognize and people ask about. But I might bring it back sometime. And you know, no, I don't have any hard fast rules about like I'm never doing that one again. It's like if people want it, you know, like I'll bring it back. I don't want it. I'm not trying to create any kind of like artificial scarcity or anything like that.
I mean, 2025 is really not that far away. You could do a 10th anniversary edition.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. My fifth anniversary was when the pandemic, you know, when all the lockdowns were just starting, and like we didn't nobody knew anything about stuff. So like my fifth anniversary was kind of like, oh, that kind of petered out and kind of was nothing, you know. But 2020, you're right. 2025 is not far away.
No, no, it's not that far away, and it'll be the year after they roll out JFK Jr. from the deep freeze so that he can join the Orange Ape to be
Yeah,
vice president.
yeah. JFK Jr. Thank you. I'm glad you understand. I'm glad you're part of the team.
I so I saw Daniel Rodrigue. He was posting photos from Dallas of the people waiting on the grassy knoll for
Yeah.
JFK Senior to come out and announce the running mate thing, and I was just like, "There's hundreds of people there. How do these people actually believe that this is a real thing?"
Those poor people are just getting trolled at this point, you know, like whoever's feeding this information to them is just, they're just fucking with them at this point, you know.
It's just mean. It's just
Yeah.
mean. Yeah. So, what a time to be alive right now. So
What
what?
a be alive, dude. Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
you're in the Bay Area, you were saying.
Hmm. Yep.
Uh,
Technically, officially, the East Bay Area. So like, I live in a town called Benicia. So like, kind of southeast of San Francisco. There's like Berkeley, Oakland, and stuff like that. So I'm kind of on that side of the bay.
okay. Yeah, I've spent a bit of time down there because I used to work for a company that was in Mountain View. So we
Okay.
spent a lot of time in like the Palo Alto, Mountain View
Yeah,
area.
yeah. So that's south of me. So I would have been. I'm basically an hour north of that.
Okay. That's a beautiful area there. What
Oh,
was like, so you mentioned the pandemic, and um I had the joy of being in San Francisco the weekend it was shutting down because of the
really?
pandemic, and that was like, well, yeah, because the Policon thing was going on. So Brian Brooks
That's
and
right.
the San Francisco Instant Film Group and the Policon guys all got together to put together uh, a Polaroid event. Glass Key hosted us, which was really cool, and
That's
Underdog Lab,
that's right.
which is Brian's joint with Jesse. They were hosting us too, and it was like the weekend that like you guys shut down that Monday, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was
That hammer was about to drop, and that's why I didn't go to that Policon thing. Was like, you know, stuff's getting weird, stuff's getting real, and it's like, you know, like I have a lot of friends going to this Policon thing, and you just reminded me of that, and you know, that's why I just ended up not going to that. It's like I'm just gonna lay low. I don't know what's, you know, Nobody knew anything really yet, you know.
Well, and that was the thing that was so weird is that yeah, no one really knew, but like people were talking about this stuff, and I stayed with my friend Brian and Mary. We shared a hostel together, and like the night that we first got there, we were all talking like, did we make a huge mistake? Like, should we stay at home? But then we were also kind of like, we all had this gut feeling that this was probably going to be the last trip that any of us would be able to take at any time for a long time.
Yeah.
So we were just like, fuck it, let's try it. And it was like so early. Like when I left Toronto, there was no like when you come back you have to quarantine or anything like that. But like when I came
Right.
back, we're like, you have to go straight home and you're not allowed to leave for 14 days. I'm like, the fuck is this about? Like, this is so crazy.
Yeah, those crazy times. It was insanity. So yeah, absolutely.
So like being further down in the Bay Area, like what was that like? Because I know San Francisco was super freaking weird when that was all locked down.
It's pretty weird. So I live in an area that is it's fairly it's pretty liberal, you know, being in the Bay Area. But if you go further any further east or north, it starts to get a little redder, if you know what I mean. So like I live in a county where it's like one of the health officials was like not really pushing for any mask mandates or anything like that. You know, there's like a bunch of counties had started saying, okay, quarantines, curfews, mask mandates, and our county kind of held out a little later, you know. So just to kind of give you a lay of the land and what the landscape is, but still, basically pretty close to what you saw in San Francisco. Well, not yet. You had probably left by then, but pretty close to what you'd see.
The Instagram, aka Ben Fraternale, just
Hey,
came in
Ben.
and said Mike is the goat, and this is a fact.
I don't know about the goat, but maybe a goat along with Ben. His YouTube channel is so cool, and he was it with Mint? Ben, was it Mint that sent you a camera? Somebody had sent him. Oh no, it was Polaroid. Like he
Yeah,
did a lab with Polaroid, and I was like, holy crap, that's so freaking cool. So, but anyway, it's good to see him.
yeah, he's a great guy. He was my guest last week. Talked about a bunch of things. Um, I'm surprised though, like looking back on, we totally forgot to talk about the 20 by 24 stuff that he did with Camerodactyl. Because we just
Yeah,
got
with Ethan. Yeah, I
yeah,
know. Yeah.
we totally missed out talking about that because we just got wrapped up with Sweet Boys and like all the other stuff. And it was a lot of fun chatting with Ben. So yeah, it was a big act to follow up. You being the next guest after him, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks. That was, how do you follow such greatness? You know what I mean? You just dive head in and
Yeah, we did get busy talking about being an emotionally mature man. I feel like that's a very important thing. Like, it's important to be able to express your feelings and actually emote them, and it's okay to cry. Um, you know,
or
and,
I
and
cry
we're
all.
all. I mean, was that a result of the pandemic, like lockdown, where it's just like, what is going on?
Kinda, yeah, yeah. I mean, coming out of it, dude. Like when coming out of it, when I got the vaccine and it was starting to hit me, that's like like okay, like we might be coming out of this thing. Like we might be able to, all the things we took for granted, like eating in a restaurant. Like, oh my God, and it's like, like coming out of that, you start to think like I'm all right. Being tired is not an excuse, like I feel like I have this lease on life again. So there may have been a tear here and there as I was eating a hamburger with my friend for the first time in a year and a half.
It hits different.
It for sure it for sure hits different. And now it's now a weekly ritual. Like me and my buddy Tony go to our favorite burger spot, which if you ever come down here, I'll take you. I don't know if you're a vegetarian or vegan. If you are, we'll go find a vegetarian.
I love burgers, man.
Okay,
You have to get burgers.
Then I will take you. Ben, Mike sobbing on this live would be kind of a vibe. But
I wonder if there's a Clubhouse channel for that where it's just people crying on the.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think Ben hosts that actually.
Yeah,
but
getting in touch with your sweetness is probably the channel. I do love burgers though, and I will definitely take you up on that.
For sure, man. It's in a rough neighborhood in an uncool city. It's the neighboring city, Vallejo, which was like, it has the distinction of being the second city in California to ever declare bankruptcy. So there was a naval base in this city, shut down in 1996. City went bankrupt, but it's got the best burger place in the world. So I'm going to take you there.
And those are usually like the best places. It's like you go to the sketchy joint where you're like, I'm definitely probably going to eat something that's going to make me shit myself. And then it's the most amazing thing you've ever had.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you are like lactose intolerant. And then if you do eat a cheeseburger, you're probably going to end up in that situation.
Yeah, anyway. You may just shit yourself anyway. Might be worth
it. Totally, yeah, worth it. Yeah. Totally worth it. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And it's interesting, though, like, you mentioned taking things for granted. Like, I went to this art installation a couple weeks ago, and there was like an after party afterwards. And, there was a bunch of people there, and we were all vaxxed and everything. And it was the weirdest thing for me and my partner to be in because it kind of felt like illegal. Because it's just like, there's people around us.
Right.
So many people. And are we allowed to do this? Is this okay? Is this safe?
Are we the resistance? Is this the rebellion? Like, is that what's going on here? Yeah, yeah. For sure.
It was weird, but the things taken for granted, like, shaking a stranger's hand, giving someone a hug, like, yeah, I miss like that sort of like how footloose and fancy free we were. In 2019, and then like just came down like a bag of gross potatoes on everyone.
Yeah,
that was a terrible metaphor. Anyways,
I thought it was great. I knew exactly what you're talking about. You know how many times a bag of gross potatoes has fallen on me?
I did almost have a bird shit on me the other day. I got out of my car. We were going for brunch, and like, I'm just walking forward, and I stopped for a second to look at something, and just as I stopped, I felt it like just brush past my face and splat on the ground in front of me, and I was just like, that was super close. That was way too close for comfort.
Yeah, and you escaped. You escaped scot-free.
That was the sweet boy residual effect of chatting with Ben.
That's right.
The grace was there. Being in the Bay Area, like, man, so many interesting things to shoot. Like, what do you find, like, outside of what we talk about with like the music and such? What other things do you find like inspiring? Like, what kind of stuff do you like to go track down to shoot? Or like, are there any photographers you really enjoy looking at, or books that you like look at that just like get you all jacked up to go create things?
Well, there's actually a photographer by the name of Carolyn Drake. I don't know if you're familiar with Carolyn Drake. She actually lived the city that I told you about, the neighboring city, the city of Vallejo. She actually lives in that city, and she's actually a Magnum photographer. You might be familiar with that agency association.
I've heard of Magnum. I've not heard of her.
Yeah, but I just found out, I found her work, and it was really beautiful work. And as I was, going through her website, I would see captions, about like, so-and-so outside of their house in Vallejo, California. And I was like, Vallejo? That's like right here. And then I come to find out, I seek out interviews and stuff. I come to find out that she lives in Vallejo, which is that's just, I haven't met her. I don't know her or anything like that. But such an esteemed photographer who does amazing work. Just kind of like this somewhat documentary, but also kind of abstract, kind of social documentary work. Just really beautiful stuff. Name's Carolyn Drake. She's terrific.
Carolyn, I have to look this
I'm
up.
pretty sure her name on Instagram is Drakey Cakes.
I like that,
Yeah,
Drakey Kid.
yeah. But
Yeah,
so yeah, she's a
yeah,
photographer. Like, you know, I mean, whether she was local or not, I would be a big fan of her. It just was such a big coincidence that she happens to be local. Um, and you had asked another part of the question, stuff I like to go shoot. I mean, mainly what I shoot is kind of my family. You know, that's really all I really have time to shoot with work and the businesses and stuff. It's like I'm just shooting pictures of my kids for the most part, and my wife. But also, I have this. I kind of at the beginning of this year, I tried to begin this project of like the area is changing so rapidly. Businesses are closing down. Amazon warehouses are popping up, and so I was just trying to figure out how to document that change. You know, because I've lived here just about all my life. And you know, things are changing really fast. Things are changing faster in the past few years than they ever have. So I'm trying to figure out a way to document that. And I started trying to shoot stuff earlier this year. But you know, so when I do go out with some free time shooting, that's kind of what I've got in my mind of what I'm trying to document. But, you know, like with anything, it's a really slow going thing. Not sure what direction I want to take it, and I'm not even sure what I want to say with that project, you know, but just seeing things change, I just want to get a document of that as it's happening.
Are you thinking of like making a book out of it, or like a gallery show kind of thing, or?
Maybe. I don't know. That's all up in the air, you know, like the first thing was like, first and foremost, just get a document, you know. Um, there's another town nearby called Concord, which is like that's closer, that's south, it's closer to like San Jose and Silicon Valley, but it's just like, I don't know, 15-20 minutes away. And you know, that's area has changed a lot, and I kind of started that project there actually because there's a shopping center that you know, where it's a big shopping center and it's still like kind of a central hub for this suburb, but more than half of the businesses are closed, you know. So I would see just, you know, like a big fancy supermarket, and then all the little stores to the left and right are just boarded up, covered in graffiti. And I'd never seen that before in all my life, you know. That just over the course of a couple of years that happened. So that's kind of what spurred that project on.
Interesting. I mean, sometimes it's good to just like shoot things and then try and see what it evolves into. Um, I had this photo mentor who's a very interesting cat, and I was talking to him about this idea I had for a book, and he's like, "That's bullshit. Just shut the fuck up about that. Yeah, you talk about you have this idea, you know, just go out and shoot, shoot, shoot. You
Yeah.
just go out, and you shoot, 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 and then it finds you. You don't, you make this idea, and it's bullshit because you have nothing to go into the idea. You just
Mm.
go make things, and it'll create itself." And I was like, "You're kind of crazy, but I can kind of see your point."
I can absolutely see that, because this was actually the first time this project that I'm verbalizing here with you is one of the only times I've gone into shooting with a specific project in mind. Usually, I'm just shooting. It's like I see something interesting, I shoot it. That's 99.9% of the time, you know. Um, Another project I had kind of started but kind of petered out, actually because of the pandemic, was this area that I'm in. It's a neighborhood called the Arsenal, and it's called that because it was a former army base in the 60s. And it was literally an arsenal. The United States Army kept weapons and munitions here in this area. And so there's a private port kind of behind me, that offloads cars now. It's not a public port, it's a private port. They offload cars and stuff, and these giant cargo ships have workers that come off of them and walk to the store. They're like, the nearest store is like a 7-Eleven about a mile that way, you know. So these groups of workers who are they've obviously been on a boat for the past like 4 weeks or whatever. Obviously not from the neighborhood, you know. And they just, and for some reason they have phones. None of them have phones, and I don't really know why. But they
You
just
should ask
walk
them
off
next time
of.
you see them to be like, blink twice if you're okay, and once if you're
Right,
not.
yeah. And you know, they like, I just and the thing is, I would ask, but because of the pandemic, for some reason, I don't know if they're not allowed to walk through town or whatever, but I haven't seen many people. But I started taking photos, portraits of those people, you know, and just because I would, like, at any given time, if I would go take a walk, I'd see like a couple of groups of people, you know. Again, you could just tell that they've come off a boat, you know, like there's like a group of 4, 5, 6 of them or whatever, just come off a boat, go to the grocery store to get some candy and a Coke, and, you know, go back to the boat to work, and then, you know, ship off to the next port or wherever they're going. So, but yeah, you don't see them anymore since the pandemic.
That's a really interesting story. I wonder what happened to those people. But Ben also has a question. He's curious about your thoughts on the film price increase and the general accessibility of film going forward.
That's a really good question. You know, I don't. I've seen a lot of really interesting conversations come up about that. You know, people lamenting a price increase, which I don't blame them. You know, when something is $3 in 2015 and it's $10 now, of course people are going to complain. Like, I don't want to pay 3 times as much for something that was $3 a few years ago. But then also the thing that's come up about it, it was in Silver Grain. Do you know that magazine, Silver Grain? I think Silver Grain Classics is what it's called.
No.
Somebody posted a really in-depth article looking at the price of film, and how it's not only with inflation, but the pre-digital price of film was actually pretty expensive. You know?
Oh yeah, I did see that one out there where it's like we're basically like the pricing we're at right now is sort of where we were at the peak in the 90s
Yeah,
before film prices started to go down. So if anything, film prices have normalized because they had to sell so cheap just to get people to buy shit.
exactly. And you know, a weird part of the conversation is people telling other people to not complain because it was expensive before this, so you're not allowed to complain or something. You know, that's kind of the vibe I get from certain people. But it's like, of course, it's a consumer good. It was priced at a certain point. And as for how I feel about it, you know, I can't say that I like it. You know, um, I'm pretty stocked up, just because that's kind of my nature to stock up on stuff. 35 millimeter film roll. Yeah, Silver Grain Classics. That's where, if anybody wants to read that article, that's where that article was. So Silver Grain Classics. But you know, but also, Ben, it makes me a little fearful because I don't know. You know, a lot of people will have an inflection point of where they might stop shooting film, but you know, I mean, I don't see demand going away. If demand were to go away, I'm sure manufacturers would kind of compensate for that by dropping prices because they don't want demand to go away. Like, people are,
No, they don't.
you know,
Um,
so
I think the
the
one.
demand's
Oh,
still
sorry.
there.
Go ahead.
You know, I think like it's a reality that in 5 years' time I might be shooting less film than I am today. You know, that's like a reality I'm prepared to live with. But will I still be shooting it? Yeah, as long as they're still making it. Maybe I won't shoot 10 rolls. Maybe I'll shoot 2. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's the cost of operating it definitely comes into effect. But I think something that a lot of people forget and is that the consumer film isn't really where most of these film companies make their money. Like
Right.
we're kind of a rounding error for the most part. Like with our interests in it, like where they're making all
A
their money.
rounding error. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like when you think about it, it's like I'm upset about the cost of film, Kodak, and I want you to make it cheaper. And Alaris is like, the fuck are you? Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Because where they make all their money is selling it to Hollywood for film.
Yeah.
Like and that's where, if we want a bellwether of if film is going to continue to be accessible for the rest of us, we need to keep an eye on finding out like, um, is Hollywood still going to keep shooting? And so
Right.
far, there seems to be like a healthy interest in continuing to shoot film. But the moment that starts to wane at any point, or they start to raise prices enough that movie productions and whatnot don't want to use film, then that's when we're going to be in trouble because
Right.
that's what's going to start affecting like the Kodak bottom line in a really big way. Like they're not going to be super upset that a few film nerds are pissed off that um, you know they're raising some of the films upwards of 25%. They'll be like, okay, whatever, don't buy it. But then if like Hollywood stops buying it, then they'll be like, oh shit, okay, we've got a problem. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about this, guys.
Yeah, we are. That's a great point. We are unfortunately the outliers in this equation. We're the ones on the side, and you bring up a great point with Hollywood for sure.
Yeah, because that's effectively what has brought Kodak back. Like, I think we can all probably thank Hollywood, like directors Scorsese and Tarantino and the like that have
Right.
used film recently, because that's given a huge injection of cash into Kodak, and it has allowed them to do the R&D to bring like Ektachrome back, and like there's a new formulation they're teasing will get dropped at some point, and none of that would have happened if Hollywood didn't start spending money again.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But also, I mean, kind of going back to Ben's question, like he shoots a lot of instant. That market looks pretty darn healthy. You know, um,
It's a very healthy market.
with Instax and Polaroid, kind of becoming Polaroid again. That's I love seeing that. There you go, man. So yeah,
What what are
you love to see it.
what are your thoughts on this guy, the Polaroid Go?
I mean, I like it. I don't have one. I would totally get one though. Like the only reason I don't have a reason why I haven't gotten one, other than I'm shooting a lot of Instax wide right now. Yeah, but I mean that thing is awesome.
It's so tiny though. Like here's a regular Polaroid, and then there's the Go. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a fraction of the size.
That's niche for sure. That's definitely a niche thing. But like anything that creates a picture using chemicals, like I'm into it. I don't know. I don't know if it was successful. Do you know if it was like a successful format for them, or I don't
Well,
know anything about
I'm not
that.
sure. They haven't really released much about it, but I
Yeah.
think like this wasn't for us. They didn't make the Go for
Right.
people that like
That's
to
not for us. Yeah.
Polaroid. But where I could see this really taking off is like, the parents that are thinking of buying their kid a camera and they're looking at an Instax Mini or they're looking at a Polaroid Go, and maybe they'll lean a little bit more to the Polaroid for the nostalgia aspect of it to be like, oh, I remember Polaroids when I was a kid and I want to get
Right.
my Polaroid or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, so like for that purpose, like I think this is a great size. Like, kids will love this kind of thing, and it's a lot cheaper to burn through these than it is to burn through the regular Polaroid, even with I-type.
Yeah.
And
For sure. And that's one thing I appreciate too is like these formats that come out like, and you hear a lot of people say, well, it's the frame is so small, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not for you. It's for somebody else. You gotta learn to accept that that's like that part of the industry, which, you consume some of their products. They make money in other parts of the industry too. So that format might not be for you or me, but it's for somebody. Like just like like the Instax Mini. I understand. as I understand it, those are super popular and people love those. I actually,
Extremely popular.
yeah, extremely popular. So, the fact that they make money from that makes me happy because I want them to keep making, that and the wide.
Yeah, the Instax Mini is a neat format, and the only mini camera that I have right now is my only Leica, which
Oh,
is
the
a kind of
Sofort.
yeah,
Yeah, those are cool.
the
Those are
most
cool.
ridiculous Leica that's ever been made. Like,
Yeah,
and the only reason I got it is I got a wicked deal on it off of Craigslist. Some guy was selling it for $150. He had no
that's
idea
good.
what
I would have snapped that up for sure.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
it's kind of funny to have the red dot.
exactly, man, exactly. I got into Instax Wide because I found an Instax 210, which, by the way, if anybody wants to get an Instax Wide, Instax 210s are super undervalued right now. I see them for $20 in my area, like all day, just used. Maybe not on eBay, sometimes on eBay, but like $20 to $40 for an Instax 210, which is the older model wide. It's the predecessor to the 300. Yeah, it shoots wide, and those frames are huge.
I kind of like the look of the 210 more than the 300 too. Like the 300 is just too chunky and bulky, and it
Yeah,
kind of it's annoying.
yeah. The
Uh,
210 has like a weird. I wish I had one with me, but the 210 has like a weird viewfinder on the side, and
yeah,
um,
yeah, it does like alien poke out kind of thing on.
exactly. And you know what? The parallax of that viewfinder is really not great, but you learn to live with it. And it's a fun camera.
Yeah, I don't think I ever used a viewfinder when I was shooting the wide. I just kind of pointed it at people and just pushed the button.
Huge point. Yeah, yeah.
It's such a cool platform though. Like, I love the wide medium. I just don't really like the wide cameras. Like, I haven't been super duper impressed by any of the wide cameras that Fuji have. I've been trying to find a good deal on a 500F because I hear that's like the holy grail of like the Instax wide cameras.
I've
But
never.
whenever they come up,
I'm actually. I'm not familiar with those at all.
oh, so the 500F was like, I think it was a Japanese market only Instax wide camera. It had a much better lens. It's autofocus. Like it's like the cat's meow when it comes to
Oh,
shooting Instax wide.
let's hit the eBay right now, man. What, the 500F?
Yeah, 500F. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Instax wide printer that they just released.
I also think it's cool. Like I would, I actually have. I don't have the Instax Y printer, but um, they have that. A bunch of companies license this technology called Zinc. Have you ever seen those? It's those
Yeah,
little like Canon makes a Canon brand one, Polaroid makes a Polaroid, Kodak makes a Kodak brand one. So just I think any kind of instant printing thing I think is really cool. Um, my we have one of those, and my daughter's always asking me to print pictures, from my phone because she likes to make like scrapbook photo albums and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean I think anything that prints a picture is cool. I've always thought that the best way to see a picture is in print. So, I dig it.
I agree. I think it's a really cool thing, and
Yeah.
I've started playing with digital more again. Like I picked up a Fujifilm X-T2, which required me to eat a lot of crow because I've shat on Fuji a lot over the last few years,
Hmm.
and um, they make a damn fine digital camera. I
For
have to give. But I'm kind of excited of checking out the new wide printer to be able to print photos from the X-T2 on the
Yeah.
wide print. I think that'd be pretty cool.
What do they run? Do you know how much they cost?
Um, they're like 200 something Canadian, so that's like what, $50 American?
I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad.
No, I
If
think it's
I
like
had,
150 American or something like that.
yeah, if I had a compatible camera, I would totally get one. But
And you could
I
use
feel.
it with your iPhone too.
What's that?
You could just use it with your iPhone too. Like
Oh,
there's
can you? Okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah, just it Bluetooths on your iPhone, just like the Zinc printers. You just
Yeah,
have the app. You can like do the thing, and it looks pretty cool. I'm definitely gonna pick one up
Yeah.
here soon. JP lucked out, and because he's always stocking all the things, and he scored one at Target because they fucked up and released it early, and he ordered it before they closed it off again. So
That's awesome.
yeah. Waster of Silver says it's time to go look for half frame cams to make up for the price increase. How do you feel about half frame cameras?
I don't, purely from a gear standpoint, I've never shot with a half frame camera that I particularly liked. I don't have a problem with the format. I think the format is cool. What are those Olympus ones? The Pen F.
Yeah, the Pen.
I've never gotten my hands on one of those. I imagine it would be cool, but I think I personally would not shoot half frame just because the 35 millimeter frame size is my sweet spot. It's big enough for me, and it's that spot where it's big enough and it's not too small. Whereas half frame, I think it's getting into that like too small territory, which I know that you can still make some fine photographs with a half frame of 35 millimeter, but I just like the 35 millimeter frame size too much. It's just totally my sweet spot.
Hi, Stephanie.
Stephanie?
I agree. Like, I like the 35 millimeter frame size. It's
Yeah.
a really good frame size. I just started shooting 6x6 or no, sorry, not 6x9. And I like that too, because it's like you get that 35 millimeter frame set, but just like a honking big negative, which has been pretty cool. My problem though with half frame is I bought a Samurai because I was all stoked about like trying half frame, and it took for fucking ever to get through that roll of film. Like, that's like brutal, and I'm like, when is this roll ever gonna stop? Holy shit! Like, it was too much. Like, I like 36 because I don't feel like 24 is enough, but then 72 was like way too much. Like, that was
Yeah. It's just and it's probably because I've been shooting it for so long that it's the sweet spot, but it's the sweet spot for me, In fact, I don't even, I'm not even a fan of medium format. I like that size negative is too much for me. Like, I don't need that size. It's nice. It's cool to have it. It looks great, but I don't feel like I need it,
as like all of the medium format boys out there just like slowly weeping, like Papa Mike doesn't like us.
I'm actually selling my 6.7. I have a Pentax 6.7. I need to send it in for a CLA, but I'm going to be selling it. I don't need it,
I mean, it could be a really good time to sell it, because I think like the way that they're valued right now, that could be a down payment on a house.
Yeah, well, not in California.
No,
it could not be like Vancouver, that's for damn sure.
Oh fuck yeah. Okay, maybe like a down payment on a car, like
yeah, a down payment on another camera.
Vancouver just got voted most expensive place to live in North America, which feels really good.
Yeah, you know what? That's cool. I feel a little better about living in California.
Yeah, the way that like all the housing prices and all of that are going right now worry me a little bit, because they can't keep going up. Like, at some point there's got to be some kind of ceiling. And I know some folks that they've bought houses recently, and they've got like mega mortgages on a house where I'm like, yo, that thing's like actually worth like probably like a quarter of what you paid for it. Like, when the rationalization comes, like, you're gonna be wicked underwater, man. Like,
and it's stuff like that. Welcome to real estate chat, everybody. It's stuff like it's stuff like that that's going to bring this market down, because there was a couple of years where everybody was like Housing market's going to crash in 2018. Market's going to crash in 2019. Housing market's going to crash in 2020. But I didn't see anything, that was going to cause a crash like it did back in 2008. I didn't see any external factors, but stuff like that where they've got a gigantic mortgage on something that is not worth it, seeing more and more stuff like that, then you realize, oh, that's the stuff that's going to cause a slide.
Well, there was this interesting article I read. It was a couple of years ago now, but it was this dude that was a real estate agent in Vancouver, and he had been a real estate agent his whole career in Vancouver. He started in I think it was either the late 60s, early 70s, and then he retired in 2015 or something like that. And there was one house that he had sold a dozen or so times in his career. He just sold this it was one of the first houses he sold, one of the last houses he sold. And he was the first time he sold that house, he sold it for $32,000. And the last time he sold the house, it went for something like $3.4 million. And he was it was the same damn house. Thing really changed. There was some minor upgrades and whatever here, but he's there was nothing that drastically happened to that house that made it worth millions. He was it was still a $32,000 house in his mind.
Yeah, crazy. Anyway.
Stephanie's welcome to Millennium Problems chat. I mean, that's a really cool one too. The Millennium Tower in San Francisco is a great example of real estate gone wrong.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Dragging Millennium into the mix. If people not familiar, the Millennium Tower was this massive gleaming shaft of glass that they created next to Moscone Plaza right downtown. And, through, I guess, developer error, they didn't put the anchor points for the building down far enough into the bedrock. And so they built this massive, huge, 100+ story tower on sand effectively. And it sank so much that there's something 13 inches of change in some of the tower things. And people paid millions of dollars to buy condos in that joint and totally got boned hard.
Yeah, they did. Eric Van Drick says 2 benefits of living in decaying Midwestern manufacturing cities. 1, cheap housing. 2, cheap film cameras at Goodwill. That's awesome. Eric, where do you live? I'm curious where he lives because it was a long time ago now. It was 5 years ago. I went to Indiana for work.
Nice.
And every thrift store I shopped at had some great cameras. Some amazing cameras.
I'd also throw number 3 on Midwest is if you take the back roads and you avoid the interstates, there's all sorts of cool shit to take pictures of.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were saying about finding the cameras out there?
I was just saying Indiana. Oh, he lives in Indiana. He lives in Elkhart. Eric, my brother-in-law lives in Elkhart. And then when I went to Indiana in 2016, I was in Mitchell, which is way south. It's south of Indy. It's near Bloomington, Bedford, Mitchell. But anyway, I was just I took the back roads to the airport, and I hit lots of good stuff to take pictures of. And there's you run into antique shops in all these towns, so it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. I like traveling the back roads in the Midwest and stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff to see out there if you avoid the interstates. The interstates are kind of boring. They're not a lot of fun.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, especially there's the main one in California where I can't remember which one it is, but you drive past all the cow farms. And so it just smells yeah. And it smells like shit for miles.
Yeah.
That one really sucks. I do not like that one.
Yeah. It's super boring.
So with your so you said you've traveled a little bit there. Do you like doing photo road trips or anything like that, or is that something
I've never done a photo road trip. It's something I would totally do. Road trips are fun. But having a family, I've got 2 little kids. They're 10 and 6, and so you know, that kind of stuff gets difficult with a family like that, you know? Like we'll go to we took a trip to Disneyland in June, so that was like the closest I'll come to a photo road trip, you know what I mean? But it's something I would do though, something I would do for sure.
What was your favorite ride at Disneyland?
Oh God, my favorite ride at Disneyland is the Haunted Mansion for sure.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Cause that's the Tower of Terror one, right? Or
Uh,
no?
n- so it's the Haunted Mansion is the slow buggy ride through a haunted mansion. It's not the one that
Okay.
drops. Yeah, the Tower of
It-
Terror is now like the Guardians of Galaxy something, you know.
oh
But
shit, they changed it.
they did, yeah, very recently.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I've not done the Haunted Mansion one. Then I did the Tower of Terror, so I got those ones mixed up.
yeah,
Cause
yeah. The Haunted Mansion, yeah, it's just a classic. I think that, like it's existed since like the '60s, and it's just the classic. You know, you walk in, there's there's an elevator, you know, and like the whole, you know, there's this room has no, you know, there's a narrator that says this room has no windows and no doors. How do you get out? You know, and then the elevator, you know, there's an illusion of the room getting longer. And then, but what's happening obviously is you're in an
yeah,
elevator
you're in the elevator.
dropping down, and then you get on a buggy, and then you go through this kind of pretty mellow ride through a haunted mansion. There's silly ghosts and stuff, but it's awesome.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
I think my all-time favorite one though was the Cars one.
Oh yeah, I love that one. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because it actually feels like you're racing a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
I think we
Oh,
did that one 3 times.
have you done? I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the. I think it's called Soaring Over California.
Yes, that one was so cool.
That's
That
awesome.
where they mist you a little bit with water when you're going over the ocean, and then they spray the evergreen fragrance when you're going through the forest and stuff.
Mm-hmm. The one.
That one was wicked cool.
Yeah.
I I like that one probably a lot more than I thought I was going to because I was like, this seems like some cheesy ass shit.
Yeah.
So good.
It's
Like, don't sleep on that one. That one was a good one. I
yeah.
definitely liked Disneyland more than Universal. We went to Universal on the same trip. And like it was kind of cool. We did the Jurassic Park ride and the Simpsons ride and a few other things, but Disneyland was a lot cooler. And we found the best time to go there is like the day after Labor Day because all the kids are in school.
Yeah. 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 Disneyland, they know how to package an experience. That's for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt kind of like a consumerist whore being there, but
Oh yeah,
it's a
for
total.
sure. With your $9 corn dog, absolutely you are.
Did you do the big like turkey leg?
No. So I do the corn dog. Like I'll eat the corn dog for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So
You're a
like,
corn dog connoisseur then.
yes, I'm a corn dog
Oh,
hunter.
I wish I still lived in Toronto and you could come visit because there's this place that was called Kung Fu Dog, and it's this dude that he makes. He has his own special recipe for
Mhm.
the, and he's got like a butcher that like crafts up this like special recipe for him and like makes him his own dogs. And he would do a hand battered, made to order corn dog
Uh,
for you right on the spot. And like nothing hits like a fresh fucking corn dog that you watch the guy just batter up and throw in the fryer and then like hand to you like, oh man, it's just so good.
road trip, Vancouver to Toronto, man.
That's a long road trip.
We're doing it.
um, it's I've done it in 2.5 days is the shortest I've done it in,
Hmm.
and like the last time I did it was like 5 days. Because a lot of people don't realize this, but Canada is fucking huge.
Yeah,
Like
that's like San Francisco to New York, basically.
that is exactly San Francisco to New York. And I used to have friends that be like, "Hey man, I'm coming up for some business meetings in Toronto next week. Like, you want to grab lunch?" Like, and this is when I lived in Vancouver before. And I was like, "I would love to grab lunch with you, man. But Vancouver is like on the other side of the country, dog."
Yeah,
And I'm like, what? But I'm going to Canada, and I'm like, yeah, and Canada is huge.
I have friends who'll come and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in LA this weekend." And it's like, well, I'm in San Francisco. That's like 6 hours away. You know what I mean? It's like I'm nowhere near LA. So, but
But what do you mean? I'm going to be in California. Like,
yeah,
let's hang out. I'm sorry. Jeffrey says that I'm making him hungry. I'm sorry about that, man. I feel bad about that.
Jeffrey, you can come on our road trip, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if Ben's still on here, we got to get Ben to sponsor like a Sweet Boy University like photo road trip, like rent a bus or something, and just get a bunch of sweet boys in the bus and do
Oh,
like a.
hey, are registrations still open for the Sweet Boy workshop or?
I'm not sure. We have to hit him up on that one. But
Yeah.
I just learned about Sweet Boy University on the last episode, and I'm very excited to become part of SBU. 2022.
Speaking.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think Ben's idea is fantastic on that. Um, so the Shoot Film Co. and stuff, like, do you have any like big plans or aspirations of like what you want to branch it out into, or you're just happy with
That's
that?
that's such a good question, and it's really hard to answer. It's one of those things that is like it's kind of like a product by product thing. The next thing I'm working on that I actually haven't talked to anybody about, but I met this guy. He's a leather worker, and I was thinking like I'm gonna make some leather straps. But then he introduced me to this material called biothane, which is it's like how do you it's like a nylon polyester weave, and it feels like leather and it behaves like leather, but it's not leather. It's like synthetic, and it's super durable. Um, and so I'm talking to him about making some straps out of this stuff called biothane. So that's my next project. But as for grand plans or anything, you know, the true answer is I'm not really sure. So it's just like I mean, it's always been a list of ideas this long. It's like I've got a list of ideas on my phone, and it's just like I just kind of knock them out one by one.
Nothing wrong with that. Um, so like the pins and stuff, do you get all those made in like the States, or is that something that you get like offshore kind of thing?
So it's actually offshore. So like the enamel pins, nobody in the United States makes those. Nobody.
Really?
hmm So there's a company called Pinmart out of Chicago, and I used them for a while. They are terrific people, great to work with. If anybody ever wants to make an enamel pin, I would suggest using Pinmart to get started. But they just they just ship the manufacturing off to a factory in China. That's just that's just the reality of it. When I started this thing, I was like, I want to make it in the United States if I can, but nobody makes enamel pins in the United States.
Damn, that's wild.
Yeah. And if somebody does, then I just haven't found them yet. But I spend the longest time, just picking up the phone like one after another. It's like, no, we send it out to send it. It's all manufactured in China.
Everything's in China now.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think about that because, like, in Canada, also a similar problem where we used to have a lot more manufacturing here,
hmm
and it's all just kind of disappeared now, where it's just
Yeah.
like this massive like skill drain, where it's just been cheaper to ship it off somewhere else. I feel like the U.S. probably got hit by that more with all the different industries that y'all had down there that have now been kind of just broken out all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And there's a lot of talks about chip manufacturing. Like silicon chip manufacturing. And a bunch of infrastructure going into that. And that stuff kind of starts and stops and stalls with each administration. But I guess
Well, and that's kind of wild too, because like if you look at like the history of like chip manufacturing and all of that, and like, sorry guys, I'm gonna get a little bit nerdy because like some of you may not know, but like when I'm not doing photography stuff, my day job is working for Dell Technologies as a technology evangelist, and I've been like doing IT for like, over 15 so years now, something like that. So I got like really nerdy about this stuff, but like silicon chip manufacturing, that came out of the Bay Area, like Intel. That's where
Yeah.
it started, in like a dude's garage. Moore, he's a doctor, Dr. Moore's Law. That's where it came from, like the chip
Right.
manufacturing thing, like the founder of Intel, and all like the creating of silicon wafers and like, semiconductors. That all started in the Bay Area, and then ended up getting shifted away to
Yeah.
like the Asian countries. I think like Taiwan and China are like the big ones right now, and that's why everything is all fucked up. Because we have a massive chip shortage. Like the foundries, we don't have enough foundries, and then there's also not enough water, which is like the craziest one. So the
Crazy.
foundries
Yeah.
that do have, yeah, like, so the foundries that do have like the capacity to do the manufacturing are now running out of water to actually run those systems, because the amount of not the amount, well, yeah, the amount of water required is insane, because the cleanliness of the water is like just so crazy. Like regular filtered water that would be considered ultra safe for humans to drink wouldn't be usable for chip manufacturing, because there's still like tiny micron sized particles that would fuck up
Right.
the wafers. So it's like it has to be like beyond like medical grade and
Right.
all that. Like, it's insane. So that's why smart fridges and laptops and everything is all fucked up in the supply chain right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
PS5s, PlayStation 5s,
yeah,
video.
PlayStation 5s. And that's, I think, a big part of why Apple has shifted to its own silicon right now, is to sort of avoid those potential issues that other foundries would be seeing. They've partnered with a really big Taiwan chip manufacturer that Apple's basically their only customer,
Yeah.
which is like super wild and crazy. And
That is crazy.
yeah, we've had a lot of different kinds of TED Talks tonight.
Yeah. So this makes me wonder about how this affects like digital cameras, kind of bringing things back to photography. Sort of. I'm not sure if we've seen how it affects digital cameras yet. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm actually going to be upgrading my digital camera rig soon. And I was thinking, like, has this chip shortage hit that industry yet? But yeah, that's something I was curious about.
So it is starting to affect the camera industry, because the Leica, well, sorry, the purported Leica M11 that's supposed to release on the 11th of November.
Mm-hmm.
Want to have like the M11 on the 11th of the 11th, because it's sort of cool. It'd be like if they released it like the 11th hour, like 11 minutes after.
It'd be awesome if it was the Spinal Tap edition, like the Spinal Tap Nigel Tuff edition. Just turn it up to. It'd be awesome if at the Leica conference the curtain came up and it's a confused Nigel Tufnell with the guitar, like where, like, wanting to plug in his amp, like, where do I plug this in?
What the fuck, guys? Like, what do I do here with this? Anyways, here's the new camera. That'd be funny, but apparently, if they do a release on the 11th, it's likely going to be like some sort of like celebratory, like, we're going to be releasing this camera, and it may not be available for purchase because there are issues getting silicon for components inside of it. It's affecting cars like crazy too, where there's like literally thousands of finished vehicles that have been built at factories at like Chrysler, GM, Ford, and whatnot, that are just languishing because they don't have like a parking control module or something like that. So like the rest of the car is done, but like there's just like one computer chip that they're missing that makes it incomplete. So they're actually, I think Chrysler started selling a bunch of Dodge Ram pickups that don't have like backup sensors, because that's like the chip that they couldn't get. So they're just like, fuck it, whatever. Doesn't have backup sensors anymore. And
I might be okay with that. I might be okay with that. I drive an '06 Nissan Sentra, and it works great. You know, and just seeing how in the last few years how, you know, all these new cars are basically, you know, it's a car wrapped around a computer. And I just
Yeah.
think of like at what point do we hit those diminishing returns where it's like I don't need a computer in my car.
Well, and that's a really interesting point too. And I'm going to flip this into cameras in a second, but I drive a 2007 Volvo station wagon, which I absolutely love. And you know, previous to that, I had a 2009 Volvo station wagon, which I also loved until a cab driver killed it in a car accident last year. But there was not a lot of bells and whistles and whatnot in either of those cars that I've had. Um, but the times that I went to Volvo and got a loaner car while they were working on mine, I'd get this like, you know, fancy SUV that if you're not paying attention, it'll do like braking for you. Or if you like accidentally go into like the edge because you're just trying to cut a corner, it'll like, you know, start shaking the wheel and like,
Yeah.
you know, all these like safety assists and driver assists thing scared the living bejesus out of me the first few times because I'm like, why is the car giving me shit right now? Like, this is
Right. Yeah.
not right. But then flipping that back into cameras, um, I went to the Fuji X Pro 3 release thing a couple years ago in Toronto that Beers and Cameras did in partner with Fujifilm, and all of the assists in that camera were like freaking weird. Like when you look through the optical rangefinder and then you turn on like the assist mode, you have this like Minority Report display that like, you know, overlays all this like information on top of it. And even my XT2, the manual assist when you're doing like manual focus on it there, where you can like turn the manual assist on, and when it's in focus, it shades things, you know, all different. It's kind of weird, and I'm not sure how I feel about like all of these assists in a camera when, you know, I just kind of want a box where I can just set the speeds and aperture and just push the button kind of thing. So like, how do you
Yeah.
feel about that
Yeah.
kind of stuff?
You know, and I say this as someone who loves advancing technology. I do love technology. I do love digital cameras. Obviously not in the same way I love film cameras, but you know, I love technology, but I just, you know, and maybe this is like the old codger in me, but there is a point where you hit an inflection point where you realize this additional technology is not helping me. Like a backup sensor is cool, but like I've been driving for more than half of my life and I've never had a backup sensor. You know what I mean? It's like I have a backup sensor. It's my eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like a lot of these computers. And my in-laws have a Tesla.
Oh,
It's a freaking spaceship. It's cool, dude. It's
it's wild.
it's wild. It is wild. I mean, sitting in that thing for the first time, I could not. I felt like I was in the future. But
Well, you are in the future, but the future's a narc.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
future's a stitch, dude.
it is a snitch, and that's the number one reason why I would never buy a Tesla is I don't want my car to be a fucking snitch.
Yeah,
Like, no.
yeah, yeah. Snitches get stitches, you know. But
Exactly.
you know, it's just like a lot of that stuff, like a smart fridge. Again, maybe this is like the old man in me, but like I just need my fridge to keep my pad thai cold. That's all I need it for. You know what I mean? I don't need my fridge to do anything else. So it's like a lot of this technology just is beyond that inflection point of like, I don't need that. That's cool as hell. I don't need it. You know?
Exactly. Like when I think smart fridges, I think of Silicon Valley in the episode when Guilfoyle hacked the smart fridge.
Yes.
They suck at Jin Yang.
Stuck at Jin Yang. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't want to have to worry about patching my fridge so that someone can't hack it and make all my food rotten.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of a weird thing
Yeah.
to think about, like the whole Internet of Things idea. And that's sort of like a terrifying, it's a terrifying thing that's actually happening right now is like the Internet of Things. And it's something that I have to talk about at work with customers and whatnot, is just internet connected everything is becoming.
Yeah.
And we're reaching a point right now where there's at least I think it's like 5 to 8 devices for every single person that's alive on the planet right now.
I believe
There's
it.
5 to 6 digitally connected devices. And so it's like, yeah, we're talking what it's like we're almost like 4 billion people in the world right now. So like tens of billions of connected devices that are streaming some sort of data back
Yeah.
into data pools, data lakes, the Borg, metaverse.
Metaverse.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
Whatever
just,
AI is going to end up killing us,
well,
And,
and
and
AI scares the shit out of me.
me
Sorry.
too. Yeah, me too, for sure. And again, I say this as someone, as like a starry-eyed kid who would love to fly in a spaceship. Like the technology is cool, but like you just hit that point sometimes if we're like, how's this really benefiting us? And a lot of times, if you kind of do some soul searching, it's like it's not. A lot of it is not.
Well, yeah, and like I'm a techno boy as well. Throw back to Bad Religion. I'm a 21st century digital boy, perhaps. Like I have Wi-Fi enabled light bulbs in my house now, which at the first time I heard about them, I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. Who's gonna buy Wi-Fi light bulbs? And now I use Siri to turn different shit on in my house because I can't be bothered to go toggle switch somewhere, and it's
We're
kind of amazing.
we're on a video call. We're on a
Yeah.
video call, right? That's cool. I remember, I remember just watching like cheesy '90s movies with video calls and thinking, like, as a kid, they can't do that. That's bullshit. That's like, you know, and we're on a video call right now.
But where's our fucking hoverboards? That's what I want to know.
So,
They,
I mean, it
they,
it it's cool.
okay.
So my play lot is making a comment. It seems fairly typical for people to be most comfortable with the technology of their youth. That's a great point. I'm sure there are great grandparents who don't see the need for TV. Radio is just fine. Yeah, that's a great point. And again, that's why I say, like, I kind of disclaimer all this stuff of like, that's why it could be the old conjure in me. I do.
Well,
I've got
sorry, go ahead with that.
I've got my smartphone here in front of me. And I can't imagine living without my smartphone. I truly can't. It's too damn handy.
Yeah, it's way too handy. I've like become super reliant on this.
That's a great point. I think that's a great point that they bring up.
But to counter that a little bit is it's a very different kind of technology from back then. So when TV was coming to light and like VCRs and all that kind of stuff, they were still isolated in their own little ecosystems, and there was no logic or intelligence inside of those devices.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't pulling in massive amounts of metrics of like their users and things like that. Like, I wear an Apple Watch every once in a while.
Yeah.
And this is reporting back health data on me to some cloud somewhere so that some AI can go tell me that I should drink more glasses of water or something. And they say there's privacy around all of that, apparently, but there's data pools for every single person that's out there, and no one really knows what's actually happening with a lot of these different data sets that are out there. We're just sort of trusting that these companies that are compiling this data are actually protecting it and not using it for nefarious ends or things like that.
Right. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Right. We're trusting.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And there also wasn't a fear that like when the cable company came out that like all of the TVs would connect together and gain this sentience to be like, you know what, we're changing the channels now, not you guys.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that's kind of wild with like we don't understand what we're playing with anymore, especially when we're getting into like neural networks and AI and that kind of stuff. Like we don't understand how the human brain even works right now, which was a terrifying thing to learn after having a brain injury last year in the car accident and dealing with doctors and finding out that one doctor literally said, brains are a magical thing that we don't fully get yet, so you'll just have to bear with us.
Yeah.
And I was like, as someone who's needing health assistance with this, that you're not instilling a lot of confidence in me right now.
Right. Right.
And so we don't understand the physical brain meat, but we're starting to build digital constructs of something that we don't even fully understand yet. And it's interesting because I'm seeing products for photography that are pulling that in, where that Arsenal device. Have you ever played with one of those? It's like
No.
a weird little AI puck that you put into the hot shoe, and then you plug it into your camera through like the USB or like HDMI or something. But it like helps you take better pictures when you have a digital camera because it can like assess the situation that you're looking
Okay.
at and adjustments to like how you're going to be shooting. And it's just it's interesting. I like the like you're saying. I like the conveniences of what we have, and like it's novel to be able to be on a video call with you while you're like thousands of miles away from me in a
Yeah.
different part of the continent. Um, but it's also like we're putting a lot of trust in these systems, and we're also giving up some autonomy by like handing over control of parts of our lives to these systems, and that's something I think people need to maybe be a little more cognizant and aware of. Is I don't know if privacy should be something that people is getting like gets upset about. Like privacy is important, but like if you carry around a smart like an Apple like iPhone or Android or things like that, you've kind of effectively given up privacy.
Yeah.
But the autonomy is the thing that I'm more concerned about, is like giving up my personal autonomy of like the things that I can actually control in
Sure.
my life. And I think that's going to be the battle that'll be a bit of a scarier one there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we don't know. We won't know the consequences of it until something really terrible happens. You know,
absolutely.
and when something terrible does happen, that's when we go like, oh, but we can't. We're not fortune tellers. We don't know. We don't know what that terrible thing is yet. We can guess. We could
No,
make guesses as to what it will be, but
yeah. Well,
you know,
and like some people are like, oh, if we give like self-driving cars, they're going to murder people, and it's like maybe it's hard to say, but like people driving cars already murder people, so what's
right.
really the difference there? Like, it's something will shift, and it's going to be really weird, and I'm kind of for it. I want to see what happens. As terrifying as it is, and it kind of like when I think about it for too long, it kind of gives me that feeling where it's like, my nuts clench up a little bit, and I'm just like, ooh, like, what's
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
happen here? But like to the point where like someone commented that they drive like a 64 one-ton pickup, no computers there, and
Mm.
another person said they drive like a 1984 Audi, also no computers there. Like I think it's important to be able to embrace and enjoy and utilize these technology conveniences we have, but to also be able to enjoy like more analog things, more things where you have to be engaged with it. I'd be really curious to find out how many people out there in the world right now that have a driver's license know how to drive a manual vehicle. I'd be really kind of curious to
I,
find that out because it's
yeah.
probably like in like a single digit percentage. I wouldn't be surprised to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You're
mean,
saying you know how to drive?
yeah. I don't know how to drive a stick. I actually did at one point. I tried to. My brother tried to teach me, but and I was kind of able to zip around town a little bit. But if I were to get in a manual vehicle now, I wouldn't be able to do it because that was over 20 years ago. But yeah, I mean, again, just coming back to photography and film, it's just that physical engagement. That's part of why I like film. It's
Yeah.
part of why I like drawing with a pencil. It's part of the magic of speaking to somebody face to face, even though it is over a screen rather than over text. You know.
Well, in like I think like this would be like the equivalent of like a manual vehicle in the camera world.
Sure.
And um, I never really understood these until someone loaned me the body and I started using one. And I was like, I like the magic of it. Like
Yeah.
it's nice to just be able to use something where it's like it's just a box that you set the shutter speed and you set the aperture and you point it at something that you want and you push the button. Like that's it. There's nothing else to it, and
It
it's kind
engages you. It engages you in a different way.
yeah, it really does. Like it.
And even even a different way from a digital camera where you're interfacing. Even the most Fujiest looking camera with their knobs and dials. None of those you're still interfacing with the computer, and your brain knows it. You know. Uh, there you go. But it just your brain knows when you're interfacing with the computer versus like a mechanical thing, and just it just engages you um, in a different way. So
Well, it really does. Like one of the best moments that I've had in my life in the last probably 10 years was I on a complete whim bought a random 1970s beater car. It was a four banger with a four speed. I bought it for $250 off of Craigslist.
mhm.
I flew down to Vancouver to buy it and drove it back to Kamloops where I was living. And this thing, like, it was a monumental piece of shit. Like, it was in rough shape. It was completely gutless. Like, I think it was like maybe when it was brand new, it could have been like 98 horsepower. Um, but that was one of the best moments I've had in a really long time, just being inside of that car. It was a beautiful summer day. I was driving on the Coca-Cola, which some of you Americans would know it as the Highway from Hell. There's a
Mhm.
TV show about it. It's not as scary as they make it out to be on the TV show, especially in the summertime. But it's good TV, and I've definitely gotten a kick out of watching it because I'm like, I've been there, and it's not that bad. But that drive was kind of an amazing thing where it was just like there was no radio in it. It had no air conditioning, so it was a really hot summer day. So I had both of the windows rolled down. So it's just like the smell of this old car, the smell of the carbureted engine doing its job. It didn't like it when I got it close to 120, so I had to keep it around 110 to make it happy. And it was just like a really visceral, sort of pure experience of just spending 5 hours in this car, just driving it through this beautiful day. And I kind of feel that a little bit when I pick up the M3 and I start wandering around with it, or like if I play with the little Rolly 35S, or like little even a Zorky. I was had a Zorky S for a little while there, which I just sold recently, and that was a really cool camera to just be in touch with this thing and have it be a little more engaging in a different way. So you had to like shift your mind a little bit because you couldn't rely on it to do some thinking for you. You had to do all of the thinking. It was just a
Mhm.
tool that was there to enable what you were trying to do at that moment.
Yeah, definitely. That physical engagement, it just switches your brain, a part of your brain that you can kind of lose sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a thing that's kind of scary in the time that we're in right now is I feel like, well, one, we're kind of losing brain power a little bit, and Dallas point, case in point, right there. All of those people that actually went thinking that the JFKs were going to come back from the dead and instate the orange as our emperor forever.
Yeah.
Uh, but then another thing that's kind of concerning, like another article I read recently, was because so many of us are no longer doing jobs with our hands that require dexterity and whatnot. As a species, we're losing dexterity
Yeah.
because we're not maintaining that. So this article was like, at some point we could reach a level of humanity that doesn't have the dexterity to do things like brain surgery or like super fine treatments and things like that because we're just not using our hands as much. And that's just like, part of evolution. When something starts changing and we don't need it, or like we need it, our like construct starts to remove or add that feature in. And hand dexterity seems to be a feature that's like slowly on its way out because we don't need to use it as much. And when I read that article, I was like, holy shit, that's terrifying. But then I stopped and thought for a minute, and I'm like, but it's completely on point. Like when I was a kid, the jobs that I had to do to make money were all jobs that I was like working with my hands. Like I was fabricating things in a workshop. I was repairing photocopiers, and there was a lot of these jobs where I was like working with my hands. And now in my adult life, um, I just sit in front of a keyboard and sit on Zooms talking to people all day long. And I'm like, I've definitely lost dexterity for sure. And so I can kind
Oh,
of see where we're going, and like, what would your thoughts on that be?
well, that's kind of where a joke popped into my mind of where, okay, we might lose the ability to do brain surgery, but that's when the Tesla surgery machines will assist us. You know, so who knows where that kind of where we'll lose that dexterity and how the technology will fill that role for us. Because technology is filling those roles right now that is allowing us to lose the dexterity. You don't have to repair copy machines because you type on a computer all day. But yeah, that's something interesting to think of. And again, that kind of swings it back to technology in a weird way of like, then if we lose that, how is the technology going to help us?
Well, and it's also kind of thing like bringing it back into cameras. I was talking to Phil from the Dark Room
Mhm.
a few months back on the show, and he kind of gave his feedback a little bit on why we don't have any new SLR cameras today. And in his mind, the biggest reason we don't have any new SLR cameras today is no one knows how to manufacture shutters anymore.
Yeah.
And I had to think about that for a minute. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, with all of the technological marvels we can do today, why can't we make shutters? And it's like, well, no one like maybe is even alive that knew how to build those originally, or maybe we don't get the materials to a spec good enough. Like that's why we have 8 frames of Polaroid now instead of 10, because no one makes a Mylar film thin enough as Polaroid did back in the day.
Right.
So the Mylar film that's available to like the Impossible Project, now Polaroid again, the Mylar film that was available to them at that time, at the thickness that it's at, only allowed them to fit 8 frames into the cartridge. And it's just like, really? Like we can't make something that they were producing in the 70s? Like it's just wild to think.
That is definitely wild, and I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, if there was enough money in that kind of thing, then somebody's going to learn. Somebody's going to learn how to make shutters. But also the economics play into that too. But yeah, that is wild to think about. That like that's true. Like I don't know if you were following that Reflex project. It was kickstarted, and it was,
Yeah.
one of their more recent updates was the problems in manufacturing the shutter, um, talking about this exact thing, that a lot of that technology and knowledge is lost. So yeah, pretty crazy.
Well, that's why we don't have pack film anymore, because
Right.
Fuji destroyed the last folding machines, and no
Mhm.
one knew how to build new folding machines. And Waster of Silver says that mechanical watch companies might have the wherewithal to possibly build shutters, and they could. And that's an interesting thing too. I've noticed that with photography, people, is that along with music being having a convergence with
Watch
photography,
people.
you also watch guy.
I'm more of a watch kid rather than a watch guy. Like I'm kind of a watch novice, but I love watches. Again because of the physicality, the craftsmanship, all the same reasons that I appreciate. All the same reasons I appreciate this. Uh, y- you know,
Yeah.
um, I appreciate watches, but
Yeah, I finally got a case for a few of them. Let me see.
Very cool.
There's a couple guys in there, and I just
Nice.
I got my so I'd never really fucked with too many crazy watches. Like, I'd mostly been messing with like the Japanese automatics like Orient and Seiko. I really like this Orient. I really dig. I just picked up my first Hamilton before the call. A guy had a really good deal on a Hamilton khaki. That was kind of cool.
Nice.
But it's a quartz one. It's not an automatic. But as an early birthday present slash I haven't killed myself yet present, um, I bought my first big boy watch a couple like last week. I got this crazy Oris. Um,
Very cool.
it's
You
a
know,
it's
who introduced me to Oris's is Take, Big Head Taco.
Yeah.
I'd never,
So Take has the same one.
yeah, I'd never heard of them until he showed me his, and then they started popping up everywhere. Like I'd be at the train station and see an Oris ad, and I'd be like, dude, that's the watch that Take introduced me to. Very cool, man. I love it.
Yeah, they're really cool. Like I like the story behind this one. It had a neat story before I got it, and the story of how I got it was interesting too. So it's got some like specialness specialness to me there. But I also like the story of this model because like Take has the same one. It's called the Big Crown Pointer,
Hmm.
and it's because it's got this like date function that points to the date. So
Yeah.
around the crown are like the date numbers. But this one was the 80th anniversary of the pointer mechanism. So for the 80th anniversary, they made a bronze casing for it. And I dig the bronze casing because it means every single one of these that was made is going to age differently and patina differently. So
Yeah.
like Take has like the regular, I think it's like stainless steel or something, and like all those are all gonna look the same. They may
Yeah.
have some scratches or whatever, but the bronze ones, they're all gonna age just a little bit differently and all have this kind of like uniqueness to them. And I kind of dig that. And it's something that I like about like old cameras too, is like when you pick up like an old camera, and I don't know if you have the same kind of like feeling with it, but whenever I pick up an old camera, I want to know its story. Like I wish the cameras could talk because it's like, where have you been? Like, have you lived in a drawer for the last like 20 years, or have you traveled the world, or like what have you seen? What have you been
I
partying?
love it.
Yeah.
Love I love it. You know what I love is when you open up the back of a camera and you see a service sticker of when it
Mm.
was last serviced. You know, like Milt's camera, Chicago, 1982, replaced shutter. You know, or when somebody scratches their driver's license number into it. Have you ever seen that? Like, um,
My Mamiya C33 is like that. It's got
yeah,
someone's like name scratched into it.
hmm yeah, yeah. I guess like for some reason they thought that like it was like a theft deterrent. You know, I don't know if it actually worked, but like people would scratch their driver's license numbers into their cameras. You know, very cool. And then sometimes I'll see a camera with a little sticker on it, like of like it's like Fred Willard, 44 Elm Street. It's like I love that what's the word, provenance.
Yeah,
I
the problem.
love that. I love that, just that history, or at least the idea of that history, because you don't fully know, like, unless the owner tells you the story of that camera, you don't always know the story of that camera.
Yeah, and I love that kind of stuff. Like I bought a Mamiya press cam off of a guy that used to be a colorist for Vice out of Australia, and he
Mhm.
was living in Toronto for a while. And he's like, I don't have the story of his camera before I bought it, but he's like, since I've owned it, it's been around the world 3 times with me. I've taken it to all these different continents. He's like, I picked up this grip over here. He's like, this ground glass I picked up at like a camera thing in Japan, and it was really cool to like learn that history of the camera and it's where it's been. And I always get curious whenever I come across an old camera, just to like, it would be so cool if there was a way where you could like touch it and like see through its like
Yeah,
lens, like know
where
where it's
Where have you been? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, and
Like,
like that's something that you mentioned that you would buy cameras at thrift shops and things like that. Like, I imagine you've probably come across cameras that had film inside of them. Like, did you
oh,
ever get that film developed? And
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I've found a bunch of rolls. In fact, I was looking through some rolls yesterday of stuff I'd gotten developed. Yeah, I mean, I don't always get it developed, but I fairly often get it developed. Like if it's rewound back into the cassette, then I assume it's all been shot, But otherwise, it like you can tell when something's been pulled out and it's been opened a bunch and exposed, and it's like, well, the film's
yeah,
just exposed. I'm not going to get it developed. But yeah, for sure, yeah, I've found that. I've even tried to post a couple of examples on Twitter and my stories on Instagram to see if I could get the pictures back to their owners, but I've never really gotten any bites.
that's that's too bad.
Yeah.
There, there's someone here in Vancouver that found a box of slide, like not a, it was like like a grocery bag of slides that
Hmm.
someone had thrown
Oh,
out.
someone threw out.
And yeah, he grabbed them and he's been scanning them and he made like this Instagram page. I gotta try and find it, but it's really fascinating because it's just like these random people's lives that someone just was like, ah, fuck it, I don't care about these
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. For some reason that they no longer held value, and that's kind of sad. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, I find that stuff all the time. Kind of related to the technology, I found a digital camera a while ago that had uh, uh, pictures on the card, and I was curious about, and I posted about this on Instagram too. I was curious. I Googled face recognition technology. I just Googled, and I found a company where you can upload a picture, and it'll recognize the face and do like a reverse search on the face. And long story short, I found the person who was in these pictures. Pictures of his family and his kids and stuff. And I found the guy. Like I found out who he was, and that was like, wow, that's kind of scary. That like me, who is only moderately technologically savvy, was able to, from the photographs on a memory card, was able to find who this person was. So that was kind of scary.
I'm kind of curious though. So while you were hacking the Gibson, when you got to the point where you realized the
It's,
person was, were you like, I'm in?
yeah,
And all the hackers like, I'm in.
it you know it was more like, holy shit, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Like, and again, like I'm fairly technologically savvy. I know my way around stuff, but like I'm by no means a hacker. But hacking the Gibson, that's a funny reference. But uh, but yeah, when I saw the guy, like I saw the search results come up, and the name, and it's like, when I saw that connection, I was like, holy shit, that's the guy. And that's really scary that in under 10 minutes, I was able to find that.
well, and that's a thing that's kind of wild about the world we live in right now. And this is like, why I've said it so many times in different forums that privacy doesn't really exist anymore
Yeah.
because the only way to be completely private in this world is to completely drop out of participating in all of this
Yeah.
and go Grizzly Adams it somewhere. And even then, like a satellite could like pick you up wiping your ass in the woods somewhere, and like they'll have like a photo of you like this looking up to the stars, and
Hmm.
maybe it gets put out publicly sometime and someone does a
Yeah.
reverse search because you've been missing for like 30 years and it comes up like this photo of you in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's we live in a very intrusive world right now, and yeah, it's kind of scary to think like how much data is just out there and how much of it really isn't controlled completely yet. And sometimes that could be a good thing because like if this was like a lost camera, you could have found who that person was through those things and messaged
Right.
them, hey, like I found this camera, like, in Vallejo, and using the internet, kind of figure out maybe it's yours. Like, are you trying to find this, or like, that super creepy popularized TV show on Netflix, this kind of stuff could be used by like a character like Joe and you for sketchy shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and that's kind of how I felt. It's like it's like it's creepy. I was thinking about reaching out to the guy and saying, "Hey, I found this camera. It was at a thrift store, so I assume he just chucked it, But I found your pictures on this camera. Do you want these pictures back, or would you just like me to just format it? And I thought, like, well, maybe even that's too creepy. I'm not even going to do that, So
So now you just have pictures of this random dude, and you know who he is. But
yeah, I'm going to email them to you right now, dude. They're great. This dude's no. So no, I just I formatted the card. I deleted them, and I was like, like I want no part of that. That is just so weird that I was able to do that, just as an experiment.
Well, and sometimes it's nice not to know. Like, I was talking about this with some friends, about like sometimes when you're taking pictures of things and like you see this thing going on and you kind of wonder, it's like, what's the story behind that?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's better to just not know. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. So now we know that Mike likes searching for random people on the internet.
Yeah, I will find you and I will stalk you to the ends of the earth.
So, would it be fair to say that you're like the Liam Neeson of the film community then?
Yeah, I've got a very specific skill set.
When you said "I will find you," I just like it
Yeah.
made me think of like the Taken stuff, and I couldn't help myself there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude, I really appreciate you spending this time with me. It's been great chatting with you, and like
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hope we didn't go off the rails too much, man. I'm not
no,
sure.
and so like that's the thing is this show is kind of the point of it is to kind of go off the rails a little bit because there's so many other podcasts and interview things out there where um, it's like, what is your favorite film stock?
Yeah.
What is your favorite, um, you know, uh, why can't I think about it right now? What is your favorite lens?
Hmm.
Like those kinds of things, and like a lot of the conversations that I've watched, albeit so many of them are great, and it's really cool to watch them and learn, but it's all really focused on like the equipment and like the pictures and um, don't really get to hear a lot about the person.
Yeah,
And so that's what I kind of like doing with this platform is like being able to learn more about you, like Mike, the guy behind Shoot Film Co, the guy behind the camera, and the guy that's like learning who you are through your SD cards that you dropped on the ground. Like it's
stealing people's SD cards.
yeah, exactly. That could be a patch. It's like, are your SD cards safe? It's like, do you know where your SD cards are right now? You could do that once, like I learned it from watching you, and just like have like an SD card like opening up a cigar box and
Yeah,
um but no, I like learning more about like the like people's stories about themselves, and that's something that I missed during COVID was being able to go to events like the Film Padua and going to Polacon and different things like that, and being
for
able to
sure.
connect with people and like meet them on a personal level. And
Yeah,
so I guess I've tried to instill that in this chat where it's like get that thing that I'm missing, but then it also enables other people to learn a bit more about each individual person.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna wind it down a little bit though, because I'm starting to lose my train of thought.
It is. I didn't even realize how I guess it's 7. We've been at this for a couple hours, so
Yeah, we've been at it. It's been a good chat. Like
yeah,
I've appreciated the time, man. I can't wait to see you in the real world and get burgers. Because the Bay Area is going to be it's on my like list of like top 5 places to first hit when travel is not as crazy as it is right now.
Yeah, man, come on. We'll do it, man. I'll take you through. I'll show you Vallejo. We'll stalk some people, man. We'll find some. We'll hack the Gibson all day, dude.
We'll use some of your special set of skills. It'll be fun. And if you ever make it up to Vancouver, man, you always got a place to stay, and there's all sorts of great food to check out here, and lots of.
I intend to really soon, actually, like to pay you a visit Take, and he's always saying like, come up, dude, come up. So like,
yeah, man, we'll get out with Take, and we'll do a photo walk. Take knows some like great spots, so we could like hit up Chinatown with Take. Maybe we could even get Henry out if he gets a little less scared of the COVIDs. He's been a little scared of going into public places with COVID being.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your time tonight, and thank you for tuning in. Next week, I'm going to have Starla on the chat. Looking forward.
Awesome! I love her. Yeah.
Yeah, Starla's great. We've just been chatting a little bit on the gram. She's a fantastic photographer out of Tennessee, and she's going to be joining me next week.
That's great.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. It was great, man. Talk to you soon.